If I were to scream at you right now and frighten you, you would have a stress response. That doesn't just happen in extreme circumstances. It happens every moment of our lives, that our physiology responds to our emotions. If I were to stress you right now, to induce fear in you like that, your adrenaline levels will go up, your cortisol levels will go up. Because what happened is that fear center in the brain would communicate with the hypothalamus in the brain, which is the apex of the autonomic nervous system and also of our hormonal apparatus. And then messages through your autonomic nervous system would go through to the entire body, and then hormones would be released, and then your adrenal gland would respond by secreting adrenaline, which gives you more energy, more strength, more speed for the flight or fight response that you have to generate. And you'd have cortisol released as well, which gives you more sugar so that you can be more energetic again in the escape or struggle. So in the short term, these hormones save your life. In the long term, they kill you. Adrenaline secreted over a long period of time elevates your blood pressure, narrows your blood vessels, makes you more prone for heart disease or strokes. We know this. Cortisol in the long term makes you depressed. It can irrite your intestines, it can put fat on your belly in a way that promotes heart disease, and also it suppresses your immune system. So people chronically stressed, we know, have diminished activity of their immune system. People who are bereaved and after a strong, close relationship, the more likely they're going to have a high level of a stress response, and you can measure activity of their immune system is being diminished. And people who are lonely get sick faster and they die quicker of their diseases. After a bad divorce, it's even worse. The suppression and disturbance of the immune system, according to studies. And cells called natural killer cells attack malignant cells and the foreign invaders. In Australia, there was a study. They looked at 500 women with breast lumps that needed to be biopsied to make sure they weren't malignant. And before the results were in, the women underwent a psychological questionnaire. And what they found was that if a woman was emotionally isolated, that by itself didn't increase the chance of the lump being cancerous. If a woman was highly stressed, that by itself also didn't increase the chance of that lump being cancerous. But if a woman was emotionally isolated and stressed, the chance of the lump being cancerous was 9 times as great as the average. And the researchers, being medical scientists who think from up here, they couldn't figure this one out, because they said, how does 0 plus 0 add up to 9? If there's 0 effect here, 0 effect there, what's happening? Well, of course it's obvious. If you're very stressed, then you have these high levels of stress hormones, which are affecting your immune system, and if you're all alone with it for months, you might be in trouble. But if there's a friend of yours sitting next to you and says, hey, friend, hey, sweetheart, hey, buddy, you seem upset, do you want to talk about it? What happens to your stress hormones? Your nervous system relaxes, your heart rate decreases, your intestinal muscles in the gut relax, and your stress hormone levels go way down. By the way, there's another mechanism by which stress and early childhood negative experiences lead to disease, which is simply through inflammation. So we know, for example, that the more trauma a child experiences, the greater the level of inflammatory particles in their bloodstream. As adult, you can measure inflammatory proteins in the bloodstream, and the more stress you had as a kid, the higher they're going to be. And the more stress you have, there's another structure. I mean, the information is just coming in all the time. It's hard to even keep up with it. There's a structure called telomeres. Telomeres are structures at the end of your chromosomes, like the shoelace that has a glue at the end to keep the strands together. Telomeres keep the chromosome together. Telomeres shorten with stress. They also shorten with age. So children who are traumatized, for example, have shorter telomeres, which means that they're chronologically older than their peers. And so there's many mechanisms by which stress affects the body that way. But let me talk to you about stress hormone. So stress has 3 components, and this is maybe the takeaway. There's the external event called the stressor. So depending on where you stand on Brexit, the defeat of the referendum would have stressed you, or perhaps the success of the referendum is what stressed you. So there's no universal stressor. It depends on the individual of how they perceive and experience a particular event. So the first component of the stress reaction is the event. The third and final component of the stress reaction is the physiological stress response, with the adrenaline, the cortisol, and the nervous system, and the gut, and the heart, and really the whole body. But in between the external event and the physiological reaction is what we can call the processing apparatus. And the processing apparatus is you and I, with our particular interpretations, our beliefs, usually unconscious interpretations, unconscious beliefs, internal emotional dynamics that we have no control over. We're disconnected from our true selves. To that extent, we're stressing ourselves, and to that degree, we're actually making ourselves sick. And from that point of view, illness comes along to teach you something.